All right, here we are. We're coming up on the urban single track. You know, if it wasn't midday, I'd probably go up that little hill climb right there to get up to it, but it is midday, so I'm going to avoid that. And also, if the Honda dealer was closed, I might do their hill climb right there. They got one. I don't know if they park side-by-sides up there or whatever, but it's got truck tracks up it. So, I don't know, I found this one day, probably right after I got the bike, and I was like, oh, look at that, little single track, what do you know? I'm going to try that, let me give that a whirl. So, I think it starts right here. Whoops, I missed the start. Doesn't matter. On this bike, you can go anywhere. There is a spot that's a little bit too narrow. I'm going to click it into second gear there. A little buzzy in first gear. But anyway, it's kind of grassy now. There's a spot here where it's a little tight between those trees, so I'm gonna have to duck between these cars, try not to get hit going out into traffic, and then we'll get right back on it. Oh, big old ditch. Still in second gear. This gearing on this bike is pretty good. I think it's pretty perfect. So anyway, it's not long. It's not a long single track, but it's a little, you know, little spot you can mess around on. And that was it. Bob's your uncle. So it wasn't really worth the hype and excitement, but it's good to find those little places where you can test your bike's limits without leaving the city. Things like that. I don't know, I found a whole bunch where I used to live in town here. Had a whole route on my way home from work, you know, hill climbs and rocks to play on. That's in a different part of town now, so, you know, it's a 10 or 15 minute drive to get over there. And I don't have that long to ride today, so. Oh, and I also found another place in a kind of in a guy's backyard. He had like a whole motocross track kind of on public property in his backyard with hill climbs and, you know, jumps and dirt hills and all this. And I was out there, I rode through one day, and he was out standing in his yard, had his garage open. He had a, you know, some kind of a 500 or something. And oh, he had, yeah, I think he had a newer, you know, Beta or KTM or something, 450, 500. And he was like, what bike is that? I was on my KLX, and he couldn't figure out what it was, because, you know, it looks different than you know, than they looked when they came out with you know, it's got the modern fenders and a big tank and all that, and hand guards. It's almost not recognizable, except that it's green and it's kind of a dual sport. So I said, oh, it's a KLX300. Oh, that's the last bike I had. I'm like, well, here it is. Anyway, he's like, yeah, anytime you want to ride this, go ahead. And so, you know, I kind of put it on my routes and get over there and buzz around, do all the hill climbs, and get a little off-roading fix in and keep my skills sharp or whatever. And yeah, that was awesome. Good to find those spots. You know, a lot of the places now are just so full of homeless people that there's like, you know, pins and needles in there, and I just, on the bike without mooses, it's a little sketchy to be riding that stuff, I think, you know. So, you know, I haven't gotten a flat on this yet. I hope to not get one, because, you know, that sucks. I had one on my BMX bike yesterday doing at the pump track. I think I was squeezing air out of the tire or something, or I had a slow leak, I don't know, but they felt a little low when I started riding, and I was like, oh, I'm just going with the kid, it'll be fine. And then I started doing the teeter-totters and jumping off of the drops, and I went over some obstacle and I heard a clang, you know, fuck, I just hit the wheel on I just got a pinch flat, I bet. Felt the tire right afterwards, still felt all right. 5 minutes later, I tried riding it, and I was like on the rim. Oh crap! So I fixed it last night, put a plug in, and it's holding there. So I think you know, I was watching a video. I don't know, somebody was doing patching a tire, you know, at the tire shop or something, and they were putting the internal patch on, and they painted the inside of the wheel there with rubber cement. And then instead of waiting for it to dry, they just lit it on fire and let it burn off. And I was like, oh, I'm going to try that. Oh, that works pretty good. Let me tell you, set it on fire. And yeah. I mean, I keep a plug kit in all my cars because, you know, I've used it 1,000 times. I had to buy more plugs because I plugged so many tires with it. You know, people that are sitting over at the park with a little air compressor trying to put their spare on, I say, hey, can I fix that for you? Or old lady at church, it's like, hey Mike, I got a flat, can you come put my spare on? Okay, I'll be right over. I just pull out my air compressor and my plug kit and go, okay, roll your car forward real slow. I'm gonna look for the nail and pull it out and put a plug in, and you're back in business. And so yeah, tire plug kit, if you don't have one, you should get one. They're so cheap now. I bought the ARB one at the 4-wheel drive swap meet or something back in the day, and it was a good one. I mean, it's a good one at the time. It's got the big heavy duty reamer and plug installer and an extra plug installer piece in case you bend it or something. But you know, it came with probably 48 plugs or something. I used those all up. One day I worked with this guy Pete, and he had a Gixxer 1000 or something. And he rode it all the time. You know, he'd go disappear for the weekend and put like 1,500 miles on it or something. But anyway, Pete came in one day and he's like, oh, my tire's flat. I go, oh, I got a plug kit. Oh, let's plug it. And we put like 6 plugs in it, and then we soaped up the tire, and it was like he had run over a porcupine or something. They must have had 50 holes in it. And I said, all right, dude, we're done putting plugs in that thing. But that's the only time really that plugs haven't saved the day. And yeah, it's easy to do. Should get one. And even a little cheesy air compressor works awesome. I just had one that came like free with some kit, you know, car repair kit, keeping your car all the time, and you know, one of the little teeny ones. And we went. I got a Toyota Tacoma 2015 or something with the manual transmission 4-banger 4x4, and we went to Hell's Canyon, and we got 5 punctures in a week, 4-wheeling there with the stock tires. You know, they were some kind of like Geo Max AT or something, super soft sidewalls, and not good. So the last plug I put in was in the sidewall, which you're not really supposed to do, but I kept an eye on it, and I had tire pressure monitoring. I think it didn't tell you which tire was low, but the light came on. So I got home and I went and got BFG all-terrains, and I don't think I've gotten a puncture in a BFG all-terrain yet. But on our camper van, I put Cooper Discover STX Mac, I don't know what they are, something like that. Cooper Discover XLT, I don't know what, some kind of, you know, decent tire, and I got a puncture right away and plugged it. And I think on my other bike, the Honda 500, it's got 1 plug in the back tire. I think if I was going on a long trip, I'd just replace that tire, but it's pretty new and it's still working pretty good. Traction, tread's all good, so I'll probably run it for a while because I'm not doing a whole lot of miles. But the last time I ran on a trip with a tire with a plug in it, it was a nightmare. The thing was leaking and leaking and leaking, and we put, you know, stop leaking the tire and put more plugs in, and it just every hour I had to stop and air it up with one of them little Harbor Freight air compressor. And yeah, so around town, I wouldn't not recommend. I would, you know, I'd say go for it. If you're going on a long trip, don't risk it. Anyway, talk to you later.